All right, guys.
Amazing.
Are you ready? Tammy Faye, you got it going? All right, I'd like to do the continuation hearing for the Thief River West Side Flood Damage Reduction Project. This time we do have the appraisals done. I think that was the most we've ever had a continuation on that. I did have the opportunity to meet with all the landowners throughout the project. Today we'll be here to speak about the damages and the landowners, what they feel the appraisals come in at. And I'd like to have Del Ray explain maybe the process right where we're at, Del.
Yeah, my understanding is we've been through the hearing process in regard to whether or not to establish a project in a water management district, and the board did vote on that after the last hearing, and to establish the project and also establish a water management district, and to cap the levy amount, I believe, at $500,000. And so the only process essentially that was left was in regard to any easement that's needed and any right-of-ways that are needed. What would the amount of damages be that would be paid for those? And that was still subject to hearing, and the watershed had hired a licensed appraiser in the state of Minnesota to come up with some valuations. I believe that report has been filed with the watershed district and would be available for anyone to review. And if there's anybody that would like to see anything as part of this hearing, we can certainly get that for them. But that, you know, what we're here today then is to explain what those values are and to allow the public to comment in regard to those proposals. And the board would have to take action one way or the other.
Yeah, and like I said, I met with everyone. We had a special meeting with the board, so we had a 2 to 3 hour conversation with this the other day. So if there's not as much conversation today, we've had plenty of it, and we toured the site, so everybody's aware where it is. Values were set. I can speak on behalf of Marlon Johnson. He did agree to the property of roughly 8.8 or 9 acres on his. His was zone commercial, and we bought that for $9,000 per acre. And possibility of a little land swap with Mr. Carlson on some of that. We met with Pete. The damages are such, I think everybody knows their damages. Pete, I can say that we probably won't be able to speak on behalf of the crossing, but the watershed board is moving forward with the crossing off of First Street, but that won't be included on the damages. That'll be part of our project. So that the watershed is moving forward with from the preliminary start of this project.
So that is, you're for sure you're gonna put down there?
Yep. We've agreed to do that, and that's kind of was the beginning of that. It was in conjunction with the city, but it's got to be separate from the damages. But the one crossing we have agreed to put in, because that was kind of, from the get-go, it was said that we're going to do that. And if you want to work with the second one, that'll be the city, if that's their choice. I know they have initiation of 40% to anybody building there, so.
Would there be any recourse with, is there any process through this that I can get the county involved at all in, with that bit, the crossing?
Well, it sure wouldn't hurt it from our perspective. If the county were willing to do something there, the time would be to do it when we're going by with the dirt work, you know.
Right, but what I'm asking is, that would be treated totally separate
Yep.
from,
Now, we'll be dealing with the damages to the property and setting the rate today, with the assurance that we will provide the crossing off of First Street. Del Ray?
Yeah, from the watershed standpoint, I think in regard to the project, they would just want to know that the crossing is sized such that it would not affect the hydraulic capacity.
and are you talking box or pipe?
I think we were talking, Nate, we had a choice either way there, but I think longevity, we were talking possibly concrete pipe.
That's for
Concrete,
sure.
That can't be a pipe, is it? That's gonna.
I will let the engineer determine
Yeah.
what the pipe will be.
We talked about it either way a little bit, and I don't know if we ever resolved which would be the best.
I need to check with the city on some of their expectations, but it'll be a paved road eventually, so we want to plan for that accordingly.
Yeah.
But it,
Yeah, that would be in the design of the project, you know.
but that could go either steel or concrete, yeah.
And that would be based a little bit on, you know, cost and the need for, depending on, you know. I think the board was kind of leaning towards more of a box culvert, if we could, you know, for the longevity of it.
Right.
But they're putting a paved road over it too.
Right. Would matter. Linda, Terry, I know you've got a concern or a question maybe, or,
Or could you
Well,
maybe
yeah.
go over what the values are?
okay, what the value from highway number 7, or from the ditch to outlet on 32 going north, would be Kyle Merkins has a portion. And is it up, you got it up? Okay, there's a portion here, Kyle Merkins,
In the city here.
city's here. And we got
Deb
Deb Alt here, Terry Tim. This was all appraised at 2,500 per acre for this portion. This portion from here up the Veterans Highway to highway number 1 was at 35. The appraiser felt that it was a better rate because of the accessibility and that sort of thing.
Proximity of the city expanding,
When we first,
and then Marlin's.
and Marlin there would be on the end there, and his was the 9,000.
Marlin's was actually appraised at 10,000, parts at 10,200 and parts at 12,000. He had already brought in sewer and water into this site, which was a $30,000 value. Therefore, it was deemed commercial.
Yeah. But when we originally started this, on this whole route, we took the highest appraised value on that, I think it was 2477. And we did a 20% multiplier, which we came up with roughly 3,000 an acre. So the discrepancy between why he felt this was less and that more was just a view of his, you know.
That
That's
24/7
appraisal.
wasn't appraised, if I remember it, that was our tax.
That was off the estimated market value. So all the estimated market value of this whole property is very similar. The land is very similar. It's all very good agricultural land. There is access to Terry Tim's land here off of the Veterans. There's access here off of highway number 7 to Alls. So in my mind, there's accessibility to growth, whichever, depending on who the landowner is and what you feel is, you know. And if you're sitting here and you can throw a rock across and that guy gets 1,000 more, I think, you know, the reason we did it, the basis on, was the estimated market values were the originator from the watershed board.
Can I address?
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
The committee members. I really think that all the land is taxed at the same base. So what makes ours less valuable? If we're all paying the same amount of tax, ours is all of a sudden less valuable. I see ours as being valuable because of the new bridge going in across from Veterans Highway, straight across to the school. Takes us to the backside of the clinic, the hospital. If we made ours all residential, does that ditch with the lagoon water coming down make it appealing to sell? Now we've lost income on our property because of some of the stuff that's coming down that ditch.
They say it's clean enough you can drink it when it comes out of
Well, I wouldn't
I'm not
touch
sure
it.
about trying.
I wouldn't try it. But I just really feel that the board is being a little bit prejudiced in how they're looking at the land values. Yeah, maybe there's commercial land up there, and I know Pete's is looked at as a possible commercial, it's being taxed at ag. But how is that more just because it's across from city stuff? There's also residential
And
plotted out
I
across from ours.
don't think the board is being impartial, but this is the process we got to by having the appraiser.
Right,
And this is where we make the decision today.
right.
I'd like to ask who's speaking and which piece of property?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Linda Tim, Terry Tim's wife.
Linda and Terry have this quarter here,
Okay,
and Eval, just in the presence here today, has this one here,
And
Yeah.
this one, okay.
and, yeah, this whole mile here.
Well, you want to show us where Mr. Carlson's is?
Well, Pete, you have 1.5 miles here, don't you, on upper reaches? Pete has from there, where's, right here is where Kyle Merkins has this. Pete has this and all the way up. So we're not dealing with a lot of landowners. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 landowners, 6 counting Marlin
In the city.
and the city. And Marlin was in agreement that, and I think we can square it off, or we can maybe swap a little land with Pete. We talked about squaring it off a little bit because we won't quite need all of Marlon's property. So instead of the 13 acres, we might get down to 10 acres on Pete's land.
And that would be really into the design of the engineer, and then we'd have to have a separate discussion with Pete as far as squaring things up.
Yeah, that would be in the negotiations after the damages would be set, you know. That would just be kind of the right thing to do with, for both parties, you know.
So just so I understand this, everything south of 62, or from right there, is that the one that's appraised at
This-
25?
This is the appraiser appraised at 25 from here to here. This was 35
All the
to
way up?
Highway 1.
Okay.
And this land all was valued at
Yeah.
2477 was the highest value. I don't know which parcel that was even.
I don't think it was Merkins, I think.
On the bottom part of the,
I think that's section 5.
so that's where we came up with our multiplier. We took the highest piece of property
Yeah.
in the whole reach of it and did it that way. How the appraiser comes up with his determination, whether it's availability or onto that, that's kind of in that eye of the beholder, I feel, as far as, you know.
Can we, if we want, we can pay everybody the same?
We can do whatever we want. It's an appraisal and it's a guideline to go. It's not, we're not coming in less. Em, would you have a comment?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't hear every word that everyone said. And I didn't bring my hearing aids and they don't help much anyway.
Here, I'll give you one on one.
I guess what I'd like to say is that I think that it's just development land along the highway and across from the hospital. And if you put the ditch in there, then it's not anymore. You take away that availability. And that highways is what attracts big property buyers, gas stations and things like that. And I don't think the market value is a lot more than normal farmland. That's what I have to say about that part.
Mr. Chair, I've asked, there was a mention of a new bridge going in. Can you tell me where that would be?
Right across Del Rey's backyard.
Right, yeah, that's the hearing that we had, Brian, for the Challenger realignment
Okay.
with the county. That was our hearing to realign.
Yeah,
the
I understand that,
But
but I
that
don't-
bridge is going right there.
Okay. Does that end up being a through street all the way over to 32 then?
Right.
It comes right over to the channel.
Yep.
I do, I remember the discussions on the drainage systems, but I guess I forgot.
So there's a roundabout going here. There's going to be a bridge installed here that's starting, well, they hope to do it start this fall.
Another roundabout.
And another roundabout here, but yeah, this is all gonna be an open corridor.
It'll
Okay.
actually be called the home of the roundabouts,
Yeah.
because we'll have 1, 2, 3, and then there'll be 3 up on.
Highway 1.
Also, I'd like
Highway
to
one.
say, when people go through roundabouts, still use your blinker, because sometimes I sit there and wait and they turn.
I do think they work great in the roundabouts.
But
you know.
I can appreciate, because of those developments, and I overlook the thought of the fact that the hospital's right over there. I think there's some merit in considering, equal damage compensation, even though it was appraised a little lower. So I guess that's where I'm sitting, Chair.
Sure.
Right.
My thoughts are, I don't think the board is prejudiced for or against anybody. We're basing these decisions on an appraiser that we hired an appraiser to do. But I think the appraiser put a lot of value on how close you are to Ditchikey without really considering the other areas, you can develop anything. And I don't think that ditch would stop a developer, you just throw a culvert in there.
Well, also, and you're right in the sense that if they're gonna develop this tract of land even, you only have to go, there's already an access here.
Yeah.
You could develop this whole area, with that ditch being done.
I think we're dealing with such few landowners here and same type of land, same land values. That,
Yeah, I just wondering why you would consider the ditch to be a negative factor
Well, if you need a bridge to cross it,
Or a culvert or something. It's not that big, it's gonna need a bridge, is it?
You're like a railroad
if
track.
it's for semis and heavy things, you need a pretty heavy ditch, wide ditch.
So just to, again, you would not need a bridge to cross this ditch, because the railroad doesn't have a crossing across here now, nor probably would they allow one. Your access points, if this was developed, would be on the north end. You could appeal to the, that's another topic.
Well, that's one thing about along the highway, both Tim's property and mine, we have a highway approach already there. And one of the problems with the hospital is they couldn't get an approach where they wanted it because of the highway rules. And I don't think there's gonna be any more access
Off of 32.
roads anymore south of Seafair.
So
and everybody can speculate as far as what they think could come, what couldn't come on account of it. But at the end of the day, everybody's treated somewhat fair for the same taxation on property. I think a person would come away feeling that you did justice to everybody on it. I mean, we might speculate there might be something there. We may never see anything along that whole corridor,
So,
right?
so we're looking at what kind of payment?
If we went equal fare, we'd be doing the 3,500 per acre at the 20% multiplier, purchasing the Marlon Johnson property for the 9,000, which he's agreed to, and possibly doing some realignment with Pete, but that's in the discussion as the project continues. So that would be the damages. Right?
Good. In regard to Leroy's question, you're not necessarily bound by the appraiser's amount, but if you're gonna do something different or whatever the board might want, it just can't be arbitrary. You have to have some reasonable basis for making that decision.
Yeah, and we're not, it's not that we're lower than what the appraiser is, it's a guideline. First, weren't even gonna use the appraiser.
Right, but if you're stating that, because of the development and the fact that there's a hospital crossing over there, then I think you've got some factual basis of
Yeah.
support for it.
Okay, so,
Did you ever really measure from that ditch edge, where that ditch edge is gonna be 2 volts?
I did ask the engineering firm to come up with that today, did you come with that?
it's a minimum of 120 feet with
Okay.
left over.
Left over, okay.
Yes.
So that works for your equipment,
That-
yeah?
Yeah, that isn't anything too much,
No?
When you come with a 60-foot cultivator and you go in and, try to turn to get that back out the same way, or, that isn't anything too much.
Is that berm is not gonna be farmable?
The berm will be farmable, when there will be about a 15-foot or 30-foot buffer off of that.
There'd be a
Well,
minimum of 16 and a half,
well,
20, yep.
roughly 20 is gonna be grass.
Would that be up to that buffer then, the 120? 120 feet?
Yes.
Okay. For what length, I suppose, would go that whole grove along
Gets
that?
wider as you
It gets
go,
wider, yeah.
so.
Well, equipment isn't getting smaller.
Yeah, you wouldn't want it any narrower than that.
So I don't wanna see that chunk of land become worthless to us either,
Right.
to bring an income in.
I think that would work for the farming myself. I think that would be adequate. I guess I don't know how else to address that. I think that it would work. Any other questions from the public on any of the damages with the landowner? I think at this time we'll close the hearing to the public and we'll open it up to the board for discussion.